Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right, capsule. This is a small section of my Office Hours live stream that I do on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub and youtube.com/TheAstroPub live. Come join us live, hang out with chat, and hear a little bit more about Star Citizen. We cover Star Citizen news, ISC. We talk about the latest developments in the lore, lots of stuff like that. So if you enjoy this sorts of content and you want to see more long-form content for live stream over hours, come join us. Again, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live. And if you have been enjoying these videos that I cover, these monthly reports, make sure you like the videos, subscribe, and comment down below for what you like. It helps out the algorithm, helps out the video in general. With that being said, this is the Squadron 42 monthly report for July of 2023. We've been doing these videos for a couple of years now, and generally speaking, the point of this is to cover the entirety of the monthly reports, from the beginning to the end. This isn't a summary. This is effective, kind of like an audiobook version of the monthly reports, but I'm going to add in a little bit of explanations here and there, especially if something has been happening month to month to month. There may be some references to stuff they've done in the past, which I'll add in a little bit of flavor and try to explain a little bit that's going on. So without any further ado, let's jump into the Squadron 42 monthly report for July of 2023. All right. AI content. Last month, AI content made a strategic decision to concentrate resources on a single location, which brought several benefits. One being more iterative review process, as they now meet daily with leadership and receive detailed feedback, allowing them to raise the quality bar to a shippable level. What? Okay, immediately that's scaring me. They said the word shippable. Like done. Additionally, this fostered greater teamwork and knowledge sharing among team members, expanding developer skill sets. They also progressed with the hangar and mess hall locations. In the hangar, they introduced an overseer behavior that underpins supervisors for the deck crew, ordnance officers, and refuelers. The underpin supervisors for the deck crew, ordnance officers, and fuelers. These supervisors dynamically interact with their colleagues using data pads to oversee their work, similar to a middle manager role. For the landing officer, they drew inspiration from aircraft carrier takeoff and landing videos to create a realistic deck crew actions. In the mess hall, scripted AI was added alongside random systematic interactions. This allows the team to implement more interesting actions that might be challenging to achieve with a solely systematic approach. For example, a new addition sees NPCs watch and react to a TV show. Looking ahead, the team will shortly move on to various interior locations. We're having in-game TV shows in Squadron 42? That's kind of big. There's a lot of big information in that one. Whew. Whew. Spicy. AI features. In July, AI features improved the quality of various behaviors, including unrestraining. For example, AI can now wake up while restrained and call out to others to come rescue them. They also developed interfaces and behaviors for AI-driven vehicles equipped with specific radar gadgets. This enables the AI to locate enemies when they hide or move out of sight. Work continued on close combat encounters to ensure that the AI locomotion performance looks good, which included integrating a few performance capture animations. Where was I? Environmental searches were also improved to allow NPCs to evaluate their environment and attempt to flank the target using cover locations. The team are currently improving the combat behavior that allows NPCs to use med pens to heal themselves in combat. AI features continue to implement Buddy AI. This is the thing that allows them AI to follow players and react to them and players to basically escort stuff. including a behavior that enables the buddy to crouch and locomote between cover. Buddies now also have improved reviving, acknowledging when the player is downed or unconscious. On the animation side, polish was done on a variety of features, including grenade throwing, healing, unrestraining, crouch sharp turns, and weapon reloads. So a lot of this seems to be finishing up behaviors for this. There's a lot of polishing being done, which could be good or could be bad. AI tech. Now, this is probably a retread from the Star Citizen monthly report, so I'll read through it, but note that that's probably not a lot of new information. Last month, AI tech finalized their work to allow NPCs to transition between EVA and environments with gravity. This required an update to the usable's code, including exposing it to enter and exit location information. Now NPCs can enter and exit ships through airlocks or hatches by vaulting over ledges. The team also implemented simple behaviors and assignments for entering and exiting ships, which compute a path to a location and utilize the most suitable usable to finish the transition. On the navigation side, AI tech upgraded navigation links to connect two volumes from different zones, which is needed for moving platforms. The previous implementation only allowed for links between parent and child zones, rather than between two unrelated zones. Further optimizations and improvements were made for navigation mesh raycasts too. AI tech also picked up ongoing work on Boids. They're currently working on 2D Boid agents, such as rodents, that will move across terrain with the confines of the navigation mesh. They're also adding constraints to avoid navigation mesh edges to ensure that the Boids stay inside navigable areas. Next, they'll look into Boid's agents playing animations while moving or idling. The subsumption editor received numerous improvements, including a variable type editor, the ability to copy-paste states while editing mastergraph, improved views on how mastergraph transitions are presented, and improved activity view for available sub-activities and functions, and a validation panel that represents errors and warning when loading and saving files. Excuse me. Various features and AI systems received improvements too. For the usable group coordinator, designers saw how now specifically that a group of NPCs should synchronize when transitioning from one group of usables to another. For NPCs pushing trolleys, the team optimized the PID controller and adjusted the default parameters to stabilize quicker after returning on a path. For NPC perception of audio stimuli, AI tech began using functionality exposed by the audio team, which will utilize the room system to understand if an audio event should be received. Good. I guess that was all on the Star Citizen monthly report. AI vehicles. Vehicle AI focused on supporting level design throughout July. Vehicle AI has a significant impact on level design, especially for flight chapters, so time was spent looking into issues, supporting designers, and adding new features. Further work was done to integrate a new vehicle aiming system into AI. NPC pilots will make use of the new system just like players, which has resulted in significantly improved AI accuracy. Though this requires balancing, they now have much more control than before. Improvements and changes were made to atmospheric flight. Now, when in atmosphere, AI fly with control surfaces and dogfighting reverts to a more traditional get-on-your-six style of combat. As part of this, the team wanted to give players more opportunities to get behind the AI. So now, enemies occasionally make mistakes and break away, leaving windows they didn't before. This has resulted in a far more enjoyable experience. All right, that's pretty good. Animation. Last month, the animation team moved from alpha to beta work, including this involved improving the visual results of reloads and takedowns, as well as basic idles for weapons and knives. Since this is likely going to be on the front on the YouTube video and you all came here to see it, this is a big statement. I don't think CIG has ever officially said beta in any of these updates. Now, does this mean anything massive? I don't know. It feels pretty big that animation is now focusing on polishing and improving what they have rather than creating new animations out of whole cloth. This is what it seems to be. Or at least for things like reloads, takedowns, and basic idles, and with weapons and knives. That sounds pretty big, especially with everything else we've seen with Squadron 42 up till now. So time will tell if this is a huge step towards the completion of Squadron 42, but this is one more sign along a whole road filled with signs that Squadron 42 seems to be entering a new phase of development for CIG. Now, as always, let me know if I'm huffing the copium in the chat below, or in the chat, but in the comments below. I do want to hear your thoughts about this, something like this, because this is a pretty big statement. So hopefully we'll see more information and more stuff on this. So the team continued working on a background and systematic AI, taking a longer role in driving visual fidelity. They also kicked off reload animations for enemy spec ops weapon types and began implementing 2 high-intensity combat fights. They're currently making updates to player-prone animations and adding an increasing number of player interactions to improve immersion in specific environments. So for those of you who don't know, there was a huge update where they've changed how player-prone works. It's now using the systems they developed for EVA 2.0, or the improved EVA system, where like you're kind of more like Superman flying when you're moving around the EVA rather than standing up straight like we do now. And they've added that system to improve like how you go prone and how you roll and stuff like that. It's slightly different. We haven't seen it visually yet, but that's what they've talked about. On the facial side, the team continued developing final quality facial animations for various cinematic scenes, alongside supporting new incoming lines for combat and social AI. Again, that seems to be indicating that they're wrapping up lots of animation aspects with the game, which tends to correspond with what they've talked about when the cinematics team talked a little bit about it. There seems to be at least large sections of the game which are in more of a beta stage rather than a alpha stage. This is just another report that's following a series of reports with similar statements. So, well, we'll see probably sooner than later about this. Support is also ongoing for 2 mocap shoots, one for narrative requirements and another for an ad hoc social and combat AI needs. So for instance, to tell the difference, like cinematic would be for like all the major players or major events being put in the story, but they still have things like ad hoc social, and it looks like they at least have one mocap shoot for narrative requirement. So not entirely finished. But they've also been calling people back for things like reshoots, which you tend to not do until you have a good idea of what you want to reshoot and kind of fill out. So, interesting to see. Audio. Audio continued their ongoing task of tagging generic animations with new Foley sound effects. This will add new immersion game-wide, including non-gameplay scenes such as cinematics, where generic animations are reused. The team also designed and implemented new weapon sound effects, a significant step to improving the sound across all FPS features. Several gadgets received their initial audio pass in pursuit of having sound on all interactable devices across the campaign too. We just saw an ISC talking about audio, and it sounds like the audio team is mostly focused on Squadron right now, and to try to bring up Squadron to a high level, so who knows. Audio also assisted in the workload of planned flight experience improvements, identifying areas of tech that need developing or improving. Alongside this, the technical sound team will soon begin writing up a new vibration system to amplify the tension and immersion of dogfights and large space battles to greatly improve the overall flight experience. Time was spent reviewing all existing ambience work in preparation for the next stage of development. Currently, all base ambience is implemented, which will be refined with smaller nuanced details. They also completed the sound design for the large turrets that players can use during the early portion of the game. The cannon effects were redesigned to sound more powerful and beefier, while the Gatling turrets received new barrel spin effects. Finally, for audio, the dialogue team spent time on set shooting a selection of scenes and mastering in-game dialogue. All right. I am not an engineer. I cannot turn rocks into replicators. I do not know how to assemble and disassemble a electric car from rote memory, and I do not know the will of the Omnissiah. I am but me, simple, smooth-brained me. If you are an engineer, you may be able to help me out by explaining what's going on in this engine section. Please do let me know in the comments below for this, but just keep in mind I'm still going to read through it as best I can. I will try to explain what's going on to the best of my ability, but I'm not an expert on this. So, engine. The core engine team progressed with the development of StarBuild, the new in-house code build system that will replace WAF last month. They fixed issues and implemented improvements based on feedback from wider dev use. For MemReplay 2.0, the team introduced virtual memory areas as a concept to the memory allocation system, which will better track OS committed memory and provide an improved visualization of sub-allocations. Progress was then made on removing the remaining map and write Discord calls in the renderer in preparation for the new Vulkan backend. They also reworked the game launcher code structure to reduce code duplications and enable Linux-based headless clients, which will help with automatic testing. The physics team continued helping the game teams fix various physics-related bugs in the game code. They also updated the new cloth system and Maelstrom and began improving active animated ragdolls. The Entity System team primarily supported various technical initiatives, including Rastar and the Resource Network. This involved exploring ways to create and limit generated locations to provide a rich experience without negatively impacting performance. Finally, they provided bug fixes for the recently enabled async editor loading and are currently adding more safety checks for correct entity access. Chat saying they're looking for memory leaks. Okay. Features, gameplay. So, I don't know if we'll get to this, but it's important to, when we start getting into this areas, to remind y'all that the game is actually, Squadron 42 is broken into 3 separate distinct sections: social, FPS, and dogfight. And the game will transition you between those 3 sections, and there are 3 I think it's all under one team, but there are 3 separate sub-teams which work on each one and then communicate with one another about how the transition between them. So keep that in mind when we're looking at some of these later things when we start talking about gameplay. July saw work begin on the in-game sim pod, where players can load into different simulations to practice their skills. This is a fairly involved process where we need to teleport the player into a new environment, change the loadout and status, change the game mode and game rules, and restore everything back when the simulation is finished. It's not like the Matrix. If you die in the simulation, you don't die in real world. The gameplay features. I guess, yeah, that works. Elsewhere, a pass was done on formation flying on feedback from the ongoing mission reviews. This led to various changes, including how players join the formation, the way it flies to match the orientation of the leader, and numerous UI improvements. Progress was also made on the minimap, including culling markers outside the camera view and clipping important markers into the to the view edge. New markers for dangerous objects such as grenades and missiles were added to both the minimap and star map 2. Grenades on the star map? That's a big grenade. All right. Features, vehicle. Last month, the vehicle features team worked alongside level design teams to close out various chapters and improve how the game plays and feels. One of the key areas is the vehicle aiming and gunnery system. This is something that's mentioned a couple times in this report. As part of this, the team explored options to make aiming more challenging, which is partially driven by the slightly overpowered auto gimbal system. New aiming modes, dynamic zooming on targets, and other elements will make the combat experience more engaging. Control surfaces was finalized last month, with the team making UI changes to show additional information, including stall speed, select mode, and thruster and control surfaces. Further control options will be considered following playtesting. Vehicle features also began supporting the physics teams with physical damage tech, which requires a lot of low-level vehicle system refactors. This will update vehicles to use much more modern systems in the engine and work far better with physical damage than other recent features. July's work on multifunction displays, MFDs, focused on scanning. This is by far the most complex MFD screen, showing information from the scanned target and allowing players to find out about its internal components by utilizing a deeper scan. This is now working as intended. Turret seats are currently being converted to use the new MFD system. Turrets have also a modified version of the vehicle self-status MFD, which shows more turret-level information. Another smaller UI element worked on was the rearm and refuel terminal located at some landing pads. This required a few UI tech elements, which were resolved. Lastly, the vehicle loadout terminal is now largely functional, allowing players to see all the items available in their profile and equip them onto their ships in the Idris hangar. Vehicle features are currently working with the UI team to finalize how the terminal will look. Gameplay story. At the start of July, Gameplay story completed the setup of the air traffic control ATC operator seat. They followed this by updating all of their scenes that involve operator seats to work with approved metrics. This was quite a big undertaking, but it was great to see so many scenes that have been blocked for a long time finally get to a finished state. Gameplay story team. Alongside this, they did an implementation pass for a scene on Chapter 12 and used new mocap to update the start of a scene in Chapter 14. Recently, Gameplay features joined a large strike team to review and improve animations on the Idris. Last month, this involved creating a new track views for deck crew entering the Gladius cockpit, checking the Gatling gun, and testing the main thrusters. Graphics, VFX, and programming. This is kind of like engine version 2. So there'd be a lot of stuff I don't really know. Several new features were added to the global illumination system last month, including the initial implementation of temporal smoothing for screen space probes, which will produce more stable results at lower cost. G-buffer support was also added to the environment probes to provide a cheap scene representation for secondary light sources. In addition, new debug modes were added alongside the new mechanism to gather lights for the GI system. Basic implementation of the temporal super resolution was completed, which will continue to receive fixes and improvements as it's integrated into the graphics engine. AMD's memory allocation API was integrated into the Vulkan backend, improving the system's stability, streaming speeds, and buffer read times. A new reduction in streaming/rendering dependencies has improved the performance, and new parameters will allow the devs to modify the graph render's shader stage and ownership state. These features were added alongside ongoing bug fixes to visual regression tests with a focus on the render-to-texture system. As part of the ongoing UI refinements and unifications, the silhouette/highlight feature is currently being improved with a softer and brighter outer glow. The mini-map also received a ping effect, which will blink around the objects for improved in-game navigation. Feature team is working to bring a new unified water shader to the game, alongside adding details such as puddles that splash on impact and fixing collision detection issues on large water volumes. A new system to manage water simulations is also in progress that will activate regions upon collision, deactivate them when they have settled, and constantly monitor and protect performance by limiting active simulations. Meanwhile, a new hash map system for allocating water buffer regions and larger surface area friendly water volumes is actively being worked on, so the new unified water buffer system can be enabled by default. The World Builder system saw a variety of improvements last month, including a major refactor to the high-level logic that runs background jobs, which should significantly reduce latency, avoid stalls, and simplify the code. In addition, Planet Ocean patches no longer render in duplicates, and the Planet streaming system was fixed for Gen 12. The VFX Programming team fixed issues impacting damage maps. Attached objects now correctly update their damage maps, and an issue causing unexpected data to appear in snapshots is being investigated. For VFX-specific work, an issue preventing group child effects from spawning correctly was addressed, and bugs on separator tags and external references were fixed. Multiple Squadron 42 specific issues were resolved too, such as gas cloud lighting problems, inconsistent damage maps, and a crash in Chapter 7. In addition, the planet effects now use LOD coal to prevent unnecessary simulation when an object is out of bounds. The team added functionality to allow plasma ammunition to attach to characters. That sounds terrifying. Level design. Level design's main focus throughout July was interstitials, including bug fixing and maintenance. With all of the team's scenes content now in game, they moved to ensuring scenes reach the expected quality threshold of adding specific details. For example, are characters in their correct outfits? Are they aligned to the environment/props? Do they interrupt or rejoin points work as intended? Are they head tracking? Do they work from various approach angles? This significant undertaking requires working closely with cinematics, gameplay story, and character teams to iron out various issues. Outside of the scenes, progress was made on fail states. For example, punching a colleague will see the players taken to the brig and getting dressed down from a superior. Work continued on save and checkpoints too. I'm going to be honest, that's ooh. I don't want to say the good thing because we can't have good things in Star Citizen or in Squadron 42. That sounds like level design is finished. Like they're working on the in-betweens with level designs, stuff that's not like the main level design. So it's done? Maybe? They didn't say the B word, so it's hard to tell. But again, that's just another kind of pile, things added to the pile in terms of stuff that CIG seems to be at least heading towards beta. Now, obviously, beta and release are completely different things, but Squadron 42 seems to at least be trucking towards the some kind of beta state. It has been over this last year. Narrative's focus on July was preparing for the 2 upcoming performance capture shoots. That's the ones that were mentioned earlier in the monthly report. Dialogue is used to support so many gameplay features that there have been a lot of recent reviews to ensure that the tutorials, instructions, and help that various characters provide are in alignment with the gameplay experience. The team also identified several dialogue triggers that occur more frequently than initially estimated, so they went back to capture more line variants so that players won't have to hear the same audio as frequently. These recording sessions also mean that much of the team's placeholder dialogue will soon be replaced by the actual performances. People across the studio are making sure to enjoy these inspired temporary performances by fellow team members while they still can. Narrative team. That's very good. Additionally, the team supported localization, assisting with subtitle validation. This process will be ongoing as some of the more recently captured audio still needs to go through the pipeline. It's important that the actual audio recordings are validated to the script to ensure that the subtitles are accurate as possible, as accurate as possible. As often during recording session processes, actors will slightly adjust their lines to make them sound more natural. Okay. Research and development. In July, further updates were made to the atmosphere and volumetric cloud rendering. Guided sampling used in the Cloud Raymarcher was updated based on last month's improvements to transmissions profiles. The profiles themselves received additional filtering, stochastic resampling, to reduce occasional block artifacts due to profile reuse. Moreover, the temporal renderer mode currently being developed for atmosphere and volumetric clouds was switched to a low discrepancy-based sequence of sample offsets that are used to set up arrays for ray marching over time. Based on recent research publications, cloud shadow maps can now be stochastically filtered which considerably improves the performance and render quality. The new temporal render mode will use the stochastic texture filter by default. UI. July saw the UI team iterating on displaying layouts for Squadron 42's flyable vehicles to ensure they all look and feel unique, but retain the ease of use built on throughout the project. The concepts for the second main vehicle in the game are now signed off and ready to add, and UI are working closely with the vehicles artists in the cockpit for the third. That's pretty fast. So we're seeing layouts for the second main vehicle and the third main vehicle. For those of you who don't know, the main vehicle is the Gladius. So that's the first one we use. So some of the other ones come up there. It's interesting. The multi-tool UI was also updated to make it much simpler and cleaner, while improvements were made to the AR markers and health widget. UI also updated several interaction menus and continued developing one of the key 3D displays in the game. The core technology team improved building blocks runtime performance as the recent addition to the new UI assets led to an increase in size and complexity. This involved coding more aggressive solutions for skipping hierarchy selector updates, which led to reduced CPU footprint and significant performance gains. The team also continued adding new features to bindings and building blocks, including a color picker, pagination widget, and stepped lines for designers. Finally, UI worked alongside graphics to develop a new internal map system to help players navigate the game's complex cities, planets, and capital ships. This will be a real game changer for players, and we're really excited to see its progress. VFX. Last month, the VFX team continued to focus on fire propagation, with the shader improvements from the previous month adding greatly to the overall visual quality. The artists created new fire particles, including looping fire texture sequences, to work in harmony with the shaders. The results, though still work in progress, are very encouraging, the VFX team. Further improvements were also made to gas cloud lighting effects, including a new option to allow lighting to follow a moving vehicle. All right. So, let's do a quick summary for all of y'all who just joined us as well. Generally speaking, Squadron 42 seems to have entered, portions of it seem to have entered beta. Specifically, level design, animation, and the gameplay story side of things, as well as lots of kind of finalizations for vehicle and vehicle gameplay and other gameplay aspects. There seems to be overall a general trend towards the parts of the game which aren't directly playable being finished, in the sense that like the directly playable stuff is now being added for, they're adding the details, they're adding the characters in the background, making sure that they have the right outfits on, make sure they're entering areas which they should be doing. It's more of a like what happens when you punch your superior officer, you get dragged to a brig, like that whole aspect of the game, which isn't essential to the core of the game. It's more stuff that it's nice, but isn't done yet. So overall, it's a good sign. But to keep things more or less like tempered, just because Squadron 42 seems to be marching towards beta doesn't mean that the game is going to release anytime soon. Beta can take a long time. So if Squadron 42 is possibly coming to a beta before the end of the year, which would be a fantastic outcome, it's good. It's just doesn't mean that you suddenly will see Squadron 42 releasing in 12 months. We don't know. So keep it level, keep it mellow. But overall, it's actually a pretty good monthly report. There's a lot of new and exciting things. But as always, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and I want to thank those of you who are joining us live. Remember to join us live Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, to kind of come in and join the discussion. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.